method 2. So these are the measurements you need, and then these are the materials you need for this method. Now, in the second method, the back is bigger than the front, considering that the both is at the back. Now, when we put this into consideration, we're going to draft the back to be bigger than the front. Now, let's get right into it. I'm going to get my border line as usual. That is 1 inch from the beginning of the pattern paper. So I'm going to connect my points, right? After which, I'm going to get my skirt length. In this case, I used 20 inches. I'm going to get as many points as possible so that I'll have a straight line. Now, I'll just go ahead and do my hip divided by 2 so that to give me my skirt block, because we are doing hip divided by 2 because we're cutting the front and back. We are drafting the front and back together, okay? Just like we did for the front for the other method. Now, I'm going ahead to connect my points, right? Now, I'll get my waist to my hip. In this case, I used 9 inches from my waist to my hip. Please take note, we are working with the inch part of the tape, right? Now, we just go ahead and connect your points, okay? Now, I'm going ahead to label my pattern paper, the center front, the center back, the front and the back. So these are the spaces I'm going to use to draft the following. I'm going ahead to label my lines, the waistline, the hip. For the front waist, I'm doing waist divided by 4 minus 0.5. Then for the front hip divided by 4 minus 0.5. Then for the knee, I'm going to come up by 2 inches as usual, and then connect my points. And then for the knee, I'm doing hip minus 2 inches. That is the hip of this pattern, the hip of this front pattern, minus 2. Okay? For the knee, that's what I'm going to use for the knee. Then I'm going to go ahead and connect my points, right? Now take note of the part of the pattern master I'm using to connect my points. Okay? Now, I've just gone ahead to connect my points. Right. So, now this is the front. Then we'll go ahead to draft the back. Now for the back waist, I'm going to do waist divided by 4 plus 0.5. Now we're adding the 0.5 from the front to the back. Then hip divided by 4 plus 0.5. Okay, so for the knee, I'm going to use the hip of the back pattern minus 2. Alright, and I'm going to spread the 2 on the center back and then the side back, just like we did for the other pattern. Now, the center back and the side back, that's where we're going to put the 2 inches we are reducing. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect my points, right? I've just added my dart allowance to the hip, to the waist rather. I just added my dart allowance to the waist. And I'm connecting with dotted lines because I'm going to also remove 1 inch from the center back to the side. Now I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just connecting my points first, then go ahead. This is the 1 inch I told you. I'm going to take 1 inch from the center back and add it to the side. Good. This is what I have just done. Then you connect your points. Now we're taking that 1 inch away from there so that we are going to have a zip that is laid flat. We're going to have the back following the curve of the butt. Okay, this is what we mean by contouring. Now I'm just going ahead to add my zip allowance. Now this curved back is going to follow the shape of the back because the back has a butt and is not flat. So it is just going to follow the shape, rounded shape of the butt. Now this is what you are going to have at the end of the day. Now we're going ahead to add our darts. Remember, we just added the dart allowance without marking the darts. So I'm just going ahead to mark my darts. As usual, you're using your bust span divided by 2 I use 3.5 divided by 2. And the length of my dart for the front is 5 inches. Now, as usual, you take half inch on both sides for the front. And I'm also going to do the same thing for the back. Now, note where I took my dart from. I'm taking from the original line we have. Okay? That's where I took the 3.5 inches from. Now I took for the back dart, I did 4 inches for the dart length, and I'm taking half inch on both sides of the dart leg, and I've just connected it. Now I'm striking out the spaces that I'm going to cut out so that you can see the skirt pattern clearly. Okay, now we're going to come down by half inch on the center front and connect it to the side front. Okay, remember, we're doing all this to have a well-fitted skirt, a skirt that's going to follow the human body. Now I'm going ahead to mark out my band. Now you're going to do this if you're cutting the band separately from the skirt. If you're not going to cut a separate band, there is no need to remove your band. Just if you're joining the skirt to a gown, then it's just join it to the gown directly. But if you're making it into a skirt and you want a band separately, that is when you go ahead and mark out the band. Now I'm gonna ahead to trace out my pattern, and I'm cutting out all the excesses so I can have the actual skirt pattern. So this is what we have at the end of the day. Now I'm trying to separate my band from the skirt. As usual, you label it so that you don't mix it up. Okay, so I'm going ahead to close the darts on the skirt, right? On the band, rather, I'm going ahead to close the darts on the band because you do not want to sew a dart on a band. Doesn't make any sense. So, right, for this particular pattern, I want my band to be joined. So I'm going to join the side front to the side back. I'm going to cut a continuous band, right? Now this is what it should look like when you are done. So do not forget to add your sewing allowance to the waist, to the side, and then to the knee of both the band and the skirt pattern. So that is all.